Welcome back to another episode of the Standing Room Only podcast. I'm Goose. As always, we have Healy here with us as well. It's episode number 128. We have some big news. Finally, some huge news around the NBA. Donovan Mitchell does get traded. We're going to give our reactions on that and the details. And then we're going to circle around to the NFL. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson's huge extension. And then we're going to give our divisional standing predictions, what we are expecting in the upcoming NFL season that kicks off next week. As always, make sure you are following us on social media, SR Only Pod. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Make sure you are, if you're listening, hit the download button. That does help us. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. And you can find us on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. And then you can follow our personal accounts. I am iGoose with 4O on social media. And then Healy.
And I am at the Healy6 on Twitter and Instagram. Luckily, we decided to record our podcast today because there was massive NBA news, especially after the RJ Barrett extension that pretty much led the Jazz to trade Donovan Mitchell somewhere else. I guess we could talk about RJ Barrett having his extension in New York. They're sticking with their guy. He had an improved season last year, taking a little bit of a step up. I feel like he can get to a pretty decent level in this league. He went from each year, he's gone from 14 points, 17.6 to 20. His rebounds and assists have stayed similar, but the higher scoring means he's getting more involved in the offense. And he's only 21 years of age. They signed him to a 4-year max deal. I think it was like 120 million.
Yep.
And at first I thought that's why Donovan Mitchell couldn't be traded to the Knicks. But then I remembered the rule is if you have one of these like rookie extensions, you can't trade for more than one player on it. I think Mitchell could have been able to be traded to the Knicks. But what happened is the Knicks or the Jazz wanted RJ Barrett in the deal. The Knicks said no, and they decided to go elsewhere. But I think it's good that they decided to keep RJ Barrett and move forward. He's not better than Donovan Mitchell at the moment, but I feel like his ceiling's a little bit higher.
Yes. Given his age, given
being 6'6",
his ability, his improvement year over year. He's a product of Duke. I believe he played alongside with Zion, Coach K. And I personally, I'm not a Knicks fan. I actually think Knicks are one of the worst organizations in the league. Knicks fans hate me on Twitter because I keep it real. I'm very unbiased, and I mean, the Knicks are ran horribly. They're a franchise with so much potential over the last, I don't know how many years, where they just couldn't get it done, and they go out, they make stupid moves. I'm okay with them not getting rid of RJ Barrett and extending RJ Barrett for $30 million a year practically, because who knows when he's going to take off. I don't think it's a matter of if at this point. I think he's starting to show the tangibles. The Knicks just they're gonna tread for a little bit. They're gonna have ups and downs. This is the expectation. I'm just really hoping. And the good thing is they didn't have to trade away. We saw what Mitchell got traded for. You know, it was a few future first round picks. The Knicks don't have to worry about that now. They still have some other talent around them in the organization. So I think it was big. It's worth not trading RJ Barrett because of the ceiling. And that's all due to what we're seeing over the last season and his age. Now, Donovan Mitchell has also not been, even though he's a 3-time All-Star, I'm not sold that he's as good as teams were as the Jazz were asking for. They made it seem like they were basically trading away this day and age like the version of Michael Jordan or like LeBron. But it's not the case. That's not the case at all.
And unfortunately, the Timberwolves made it that case with the Rudy Gobert trade. Rudy Gobert was not worth the 8 picks that they traded away in like half a roster. The Timberwolves were like, you know what? We're going to make this trade happen. What do you want? oh, you want all this? All right, cool. We'll give it to you. And that ruined the whole trade market, including the one that for Kevin Durant. And there's a reason why Kevin Durant is most likely still a Brooklyn Net.
I think that Rudy Gobert trade, I don't want to say it was a steal because it can work. Like sometimes depending on the genetic makeup of the team, it's worth giving up some of those extra assets. Minnesota, I'm keeping my eyes on because it's going to be very interesting to see Cat at the 4, Rudy at the 5, obviously where he's going to play. Rudy not really having that offensive ability, and maybe off the screen, the pick and roll, maybe he catches some lobs. Cool. I mean, he has like one of the highest field goal percentages like of all time. I mean, that's cool, I guess. But defensively, they're going to be tough. They have a rising star in Anthony Edwards. I mean, Anthony Edwards to me is going to be, we're going to be talking about him for a while. Assuming he stays healthy, we're going to be talking about him for a while. Offensively and I mean, just his athleticism, his defense isn't horrible. Not the best, but it's not horrible. He's still young. But the Timberwolves I'm keeping my eyes on. But in retrospect, and obviously hindsight is 2020, they did kind of set the bar. And so Utah was spoiled in that trade with Rudy, and now all of a sudden they're asking for the world from Donovan Mitchell. And I don't blame them because Mitchell has been in the league for about 5 years.
Yeah.
He's 25 years old. So, which I thought he was 27 for some reason. So that I don't want to say RJ Barrett's got a higher ceiling. That much of a higher ceiling
in less than a week.
Okay, so we'll say he's 26. Okay, so I guess I wasn't too far off. But I mean, Donovan Mitchell is going to be a key asset. And now we look at, again, the genetic makeup of the team in which that guy got traded, the Cleveland Cavaliers. We saw the Cavs last year. They stepped it up. Obviously, there were some injuries. Ricky Rubio got hurt. He ended up getting traded. He comes back in the offseason. Darius Garland, or Collin Sexton gets hurt. Darius Garland steps up in that guard role and is flourishing in his very young career in his young age. Obviously, Mobley, Jared Allen, those guys in the paint, defensive presence. They still have, I was almost said Lauri Markkanen, Kevin Love, who actually at his age coming off the bench is not bad.
Yeah, he was nice off the bench with that offensive
some big games. Oh my gosh.
And even in the last season, they had Lauri Markkanen at small forward. So they went out there with like a full defensive, like tall lineup and bullied some guys.
Yeah.
And it worked. It surprised a lot of people.
And we can't forget. So the assumed starting lineup is, and I think this can change, is going to be Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Okoro, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. You have Karis LeVert.
Yeah.
You have Kevin Love. I could
Rubio
have sworn
off the bench.
I'm pretty sure I could have sworn Ricky Rubio.
I thought he was oh, it may be then.
Yeah, it's a Cavs reunion with Ricky Rubio. So he, out of nowhere, replenished his career last year. 13 points a game, 6.6 assists, 1401 player efficiency rating. I can't even speak right now. So to me, Cleveland, if we look at Cleveland as being a 44 win team last year, 44-38, they were 6 games over 500. My question for you is, Donovan Mitchell the man that's going to get them to the 50 mark and make them immediate contenders?
When I saw this trade today, I hated it. Not because I think Donovan Mitchell is everything in the world, but because of the team makeup. Being a Bulls fan, we're already screwed having Giannis Antetokounmpo in our division. Now we have the Cavs, and unfortunately, I feel like the Cavs might have a better makeup and better potential than what the Bulls have at the moment. But yeah, it all depends on injuries and stuff. Obviously, we don't know how Lonzo Ball is going to be. We don't know if Vooch is going to not suck this year. We had some injuries last season. Is Zach LaVine actually going to be the Zach LaVine this season? and take over, or is he going to continue to take the back seat and let DeMar take over late in games? If that could happen, then sure. But all around depth and like makeup of a team, I think the Cavs might edge out the Bulls record wise and in the division.
By how many games do you think?
It'd only be a
'Cause
few. Like
I
I
can't
could
disagree.
see the Bulls and Cavs finishing with like in between 40 and 50 win or 45 and 50 wins. I could see the Bulls around like bias. I could see them above 50, but realistically, I'll say 47. And the Cavs, I could say like 53.
Yeah, I'm gonna say so. The Bulls finished with 46 wins last year, and you got to think the Bulls
They
didn't
started
beat
out
good
hot.
teams, but none of them were good teams.
Yeah. So
So,
it's kind of like a different factor in a sense where, yeah, they started out really hot, so you'd expect them to cool down in that aspect, but you'd expect them to beat some of the good teams this year, and it'll even out.
but that wasn't the case. So now, obviously, the Bulls didn't trade away certain assets to bring in other assets, and that's okay. I think the team, if Lonzo Ball does come back healthy, because obviously we're hearing different reports. Oh, he's actually on track now for the beginning of the season or very early in the season. Maybe he's not. You get Lonzo Ball back and you get this team healthy. Zach LaVine just got his extension. He's very healthy. DeMar, we saw with DeMar. DeMar slowed the game down and made it his. The world's his oyster. They bring in Andre Drummond. Pat Williams is now another year into the league who's been training a lot with DeMar doing the 4 a.m. workouts. And, you get Kobe White off the bench still, who's been working his ass off. It's just, do we trust the ceiling that's there for these guys for them to actually fill it out? And that's a coin toss to me. And I don't know if I can really confidently say that the Bulls are a top 4 team and that the Cavs are actually potentially better. I think it's going to be tough because the Cavs gave them a hard time last year. They gave a lot of teams a hard time last year. So I think the Cavs instantly become close to like a 48 win team. And the Bulls are going to be right there. The Bulls give or take a game or two. It's going to be tough. But what makes it worse is the Bulls are going to see them more times than we see anybody else because they are in the division, just like Milwaukee. So that's what's going to make it even more tough.
Yeah, and I was trying to find a graphic that I saw just before we started recording. Can't right now, but Lonzo Ball, as good of a playmaker as he is, he was ranking in the 90 plus percentile in a lot of different advanced 3-point shooting statistics. So he's
Yeah,
like an
Lonzo was, yeah.
offensive threat as well, especially being a 3-point shooter. He has the defense, he has the facilitating, he can hit threes now for you. He needs to come back in order for the Bulls to be good, but yeah, offense and defensive wise, the Cavs, I just feel like have the better makeup.
It's really hard to say because I love Darius Garland. Darius Garland had to force a lot offensively. And maybe that's scary too for Cleveland because you see Donovan Mitchell, his bad games are bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? His shooting can be 5 for 20 in a game.
Yeah.
And he shot, I think his field goal percentage average is like 43%, which isn't horrible for a shooting guard when you think about it because they are required to shoot more. But I mean, how effective is Garland going to be? I think his assist numbers are still going to continue to thrive through the roof. He was averaging, I mean, he had so many like 10, 12 assist games last year that I think it's going to continue. And he doesn't have to worry at all now. He's the man. They got rid of Collin Sexton, who was part of the trade, which actually we should talk about that too. So the trade
Yeah.
in
We were talking
details,
about him all before. I'm like, why isn't he getting talked about?
I was surprised. So it was a sign in trade. So Collin Sexton agreed to a 4-year, $72 million sign and trade deal to join the Jazz as part of this trade. So the Cavaliers they sent Lauri Markkanen, rookie wing Ochair Agbaji. Definitely said
Their
his name wrong.
first round pick from this season. So what the
Y-
Timberwolves did with their first round pick from this season, traded him
Yep.
along.
3 unprotected first round picks, 2025, 2027, and 29. And then they are doing 2 pick swaps, 2026, 2028, all for Donovan Mitchell. It's a lot. It's a lot to give up, but I think this is an okay deal. I think this is an okay deal for both sides. The Utah Jazz are in a rebuilding phase. Will not be surprised to see Jordan Clarkson gone, Bogdanovich, maybe Conley. Conley at this point, I don't know why they would trade him. They could probably just let him retire with them. I don't know. But they are in a rebuild mode, and they aren't going to be relevant for a couple of years. Good trade, though. I mean, I think Collin Sexton, if he could stay healthy, he's not a bad guard. I think he has a lot of room to develop. He's proven that he can score. He's quick. Defensively, always top man for steals. So, one of the top, I should say. So, it's a good trade. It's a good trade.
Yeah, and I'm glad Collin did end up getting his bag in free agency. I think we were talking about like he was a restricted free agent anyways, so teams weren't really going to take the risk on him. He ends up being included in this trade. And I feel like Cleveland easily won this deal. Picks are overrated. I don't care about it. The only reason picks, people might be like, no, it could screw you, is when you trade 3 36-plus-year-olds to another team, like the Brooklyn Nets did with Garnett, Pierce, and Jason Terry way back when, and Joe Johnson. They wanted to trade for all these old guys, and they just didn't work out immediately. You're going to have time with Donovan Mitchell. You have a good young core in Cleveland already for the next few years. So I don't think this will take him to the championship, but it does set them up. They are kind of weak at the small forward position. It could be cool if a guy hits the free agent market within the next couple of years and takes that spot.
Harris LeVert to me should be in the starting 5.
I feel like Okoro is a better defensive guy, and with all the offense, they're gonna have LeVert come off the bench offensively. Did you catch the reference I mentioned though?
I did not.
A small forward that could hit the market within the next couple of years. It's their spot. The return for a third time.
It's funny because I actually tweeted that too. I was like, is this the point where LeBron requests a trade? He's never requested a trade before.
No, because he's normally good enough to get his team to the playoffs anyways.
Generally. But yeah, it is kind of funny how now, historically, Cleveland, when they get really good, all right, I'm going back home. They need me to win. Come on.
It's good, but at this point, we know he wants to play with his kids. I think I saw an article saying he wants to play with Bronny and Bryce. So he's set up for the long run.
Oh, yeah. And he said he is watching the market. He's waiting to see how things play out, and he'll make his decision based on that. So wherever he goes, the assumption is they're drafting Bryce and Bronny.
Yep.
And that'd be cool. I think that'd be awesome. Dude, we're talking LeBron James is in year 20. He has spent over half of his life as an NBA player. Over half of his life as an NBA player. That is one of the craziest stats. I think Tom Brady is the only other professional athlete actively as a starter that's relevant that's played half of his life. And
they're both in great physical condition still.
Yeah, and they're still top dogs. They're winners. I mean, LeBron obviously had a horrible season. LeBron himself had a good season. The team had a bad season. But they both are still threats out there. Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But finally, we got some huge NBA news. Just dropped a couple of hours ago.
Did we talk about the Pat Beverly trade to the Lakers?
We did not. And that's kind of an interesting trade. It's a very interesting trade.
The Lakers haven't made too many moves, and they also gave up their glorious poster child of young talent, THT. And they gave him up for Pat Bev, who has had beef with Russell Westbrook before. And now they're both on the same team. And I think Pat Beverly said in the offseason, he was on ESPN for a little bit because he talked shit to someone on Twitter. And he said, if I was on the Lakers this past season, we would have made the playoffs.
I will be the first to tell you that that is a damn lie, because there was no helping that Lakers team. If Anthony Davis was healthy the whole season, maybe. And if Russell Wilson didn't brick as much as he did, I think the Lakers are going to be a surprise team. I think nobody has them really outside of or maybe as like an 8th seed at best. I think you got to watch out. I think you still have to watch out. They're a team that literally just competed a couple of years ago. They're a team that, yeah, they got eliminated in the play-in against the Warriors 2 seasons ago, but they are still a talented team. Now, it sucks the way the salary's set up, and they couldn't go out and grab somebody else. They couldn't make a trade for Donovan Mitchell. But, I mean, Pat Beverly coming off the bench, obviously he's like a gnat at a barbecue. You just can't get rid of him. His defense is not horrible at all. It's actually better than average. Granted, he did act like he just won the state title when they made the playoffs. That was a little much. But hey, that's the type of guy you want, though, right? Like, he's like, whoa, he's passionate about for the game. He likes to win. Oh, okay. He likes to win. That's good. Let's bring some more of a winning culture back to LA. So.
And he was tweeting about T-Wolves moves when they were being made. He's like, oh, I love this guy. I'm glad he got paid and he's back.
Yeah. And
he got dished out.
I know he's probably looked at in the public eye as like just an annoying, not as good as he thinks he is, but I think he's about as average of a player that you would want, not expect, but want to come off the bench and deliver some sort of energy. So,
I do have one final little topic about the Donovan Mitchell trade. So as we were talking 8 minutes ago, Woj tweeted out, and I don't know how much I believe this. He tweeted out that at the start of trade talks in July, New York offered Utah a package that included RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, and 3 unprotected first-round picks. And then the Jazz turned it down, and Robinson then signed the $60 million extension stay with New York.
I would have eaten that trade up if I was Utah.
Like that, do we believe that?
I don't know.
Or do they like want to tank so badly that they didn't want, like, I don't know, like RJ Barrett? I don't know. That's like a great deal to still be a little relevant. But did they not want to be like a decent kind of bad team, or did they really just want to tank and get as many assets that could help them out in the future? But like, I mean, those guys are young. All of them are young.
Yeah. I like Mitchell Robinson. I think Mitchell Robinson is definitely above average. I think RJ Barrett's going to end up being a damn good player. Like, we're going to be talking about all-stars consistently. And then who else did you name on that?
Obi Toppin.
Obi Toppin's okay. He's a bench player. I mean, but I mean, high ceiling, right? He's young.
Yeah, but that package is way better than the Collin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, and their first-round pick. It's the same deal.
How many first-round picks in that Knicks trade?
Well, it would be 3 unprotected.
Could be this. Okay.
And then probably some swaps in there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they didn't want to pay Robinson because RJ Barrett would have gotten an extension as well. Do they want to lock up these guys long term?
That's true. That is very true. I think that trade may have been better if they wanted to somehow try to compete. I just don't see them competing. So you might as well just tank, right? Get what you can. Get the draft picks. I mean, we see it with the Pelicans did it. OKC did it. Speaking of OKC.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of OKC,
Chet
Holmgren's out for the year, defending LeBron James at a Pro-Am game.
Unfortunate.
Makes you wonder, what do we need these guys playing Pro-Am?
I'm not gonna mind them playing in these games. Like,
they got to play basketball, right?
Yeah, they're gonna play regardless. It would have either came now in this game or it would have came in like a practice. Chet Holmgren had the body type of a player that just screamed injury, like a big injury would happen with his
big guys
size.
Like that always have like injuries with their feet. You know, I mean, it's a freak accident, but
he weighs like 120 as well. Not really, but like it looks like he weighs 120 pounds and he's like 7 feet.
Soaking wet, 120 pounds. But I mean, that's just, it's one of those, it sucks because I thought Chet Holmgren would be one of the guys that makes an immediate impact in the league. Now you have to hope he doesn't have lingering issues with his foot. We saw that with like Joakim Noah for a long stretch. He ended up having like plantar fasciitis, and it led to other things. And I mean, granted, he did have a lot of healthy seasons, but you see these bigger guys, Yao was having some injuries, and it's just a thing with big guys. So I hope it's just a one and done, but he's out for the season. They're not even going to try to rush him back or anything. There's no point. I think OKC, though, when he does come back, depending on what happens next offseason, they're going to be another team to watch because of just who's on their team. Giddey, Shai Gilgeous, Dortz. They had Chet Holmgren going into the season. So they start to get all these pieces, and obviously you get them formulated together and working, and you figure out like, okay, this is going to be our guy. Like kind of like with the Bulls, DeMar ended up being the guy, and other franchises, right? So it's going to be a fun team to watch in the next couple of years. Just a bummer that Chet Holmgren is done. Thank you, LeBron, for ruining the first year of a potential star.
So yeah, that a lot of basketball news. We are still over a month away from the season to begin. I'm ready for basketball.
I'm ready for it all. I'm ready for October. I'm ready for Halloween time. Love spooky season. We have every sport is back. Baseball's in the playoffs, going to the World Series at that point. That's when life's really good. That is when life is really good. And I'm giving you horrible picks on Twitter for my FanDuel weeklies. Just kidding. My picks usually hit. So we'll be posting that as well. But with that being said, we're going to transition over to the National Football League. We're going to start with the Russell Wilson extension in Denver. I think it's a very good extension. I think Denver has a very good chance to be a very successful franchise with Russell there. He extended for 4 years. 70, what was his total?
240
245.
245. 20 off extension. Of what? Oh yeah, 5 year. 20 million off of what Jokic just got paid in Denver. A lot of money being thrown around in Denver. Also, the AFC West quarterbacks, 3 of them are in the top 10 paid for like the year.
Russell, Derek,
and Pat Mahomes.
And
then Justin Herbert will be up next.
He's getting the bag soon. This might be his year. So I know they look at him as like a tier 2/3 quarterback when drafting fantasy. He's going to make an argument for 1/2. So I think he's going to end up getting his bag very soon. But I think it's a huge deal because, for one, Denver's always been this team we're like, yeah, they're good. They can compete with almost any team, but they're not. We can't look at them as like a winning franchise. They go out, they make the splash, they get Russell, gets the extension. They got some young talent in running backs. The receivers, well, assuming they're healthy and playing, they got some good receivers. Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton. Noah Fant's gone, I believe, but he was good. And then the defense has been good historically. Now, we don't know how the defense is going to be this year, but given the division that they're in, it's a very tough division to compete in with the Chiefs, with the Raiders, who have actually were not a bad team, and they just added more offensive power with Devontae Adams. And, of course, the Chargers. I think that division, any team is capable of winning that division this year. It's always been to me, it's always been the Chiefs. And I still think the Chiefs are going to be the team to beat, but I'm looking at this division as being one of the toughest. Actually, I think there's quite a few very tough divisions. NFC North, Green Bay still going to run away with, but and I guess that's like really the only one where we know for sure. Maybe the East, NFC East, but
NFC West, did you mention?
NFC West is, to me, the toughest division. NFC West is, like, to me, NFC West and AFC West are the toughest divisions. I mean, you can't really. I mean, sure, the Rams would be my pick in the NFC West, but they were beatable. They're a beatable team. The 49ers, depending on the Trey Lance, what he does. I call him the Trey Lance. Do they have trust in him? I don't know. They just extended or signed Garoppolo, making him the highest paid backup quarterback. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe there is trust, maybe there's not, but he potentially can help lead that team.
Yeah. And so this will take him until he is almost 39 years of age. I think Wilson can be good then, but we're just going to have to see over the next few years. And football's always weird. They always have these weird, like, you can cut a guy and none of the money will count for like 3 years down the road. Actually, he's there until age 40. So I think it was 2 seasons, and then it's the 5-year extension kicking on.
Wow, I didn't even realize he was that old.
Yeah,
35? Wow.
Well, he's 33 right now. He's about to turn 34 during the season. Well, and you got to think as well, like, he came in the league a little bit older because he tried playing pro ball in baseball, and then he went back to Wisconsin for a year, and then he entered the NFL draft.
Yep. Do you have Denver? Do you think I think he's making a big impact in Denver, like huge.
Yeah, it just depends on if their defense is elite, in which they do have a pretty solid defense. We just need the full season of him. He normally starts off pretty hot, and then he's always in the conversations, and then he kind of like falls off after a little bit.
Yep.
He's never received an MVP vote, yet every season it's like, oh, Russell Wilson's the guy for a little bit.
There's always at some point in the season, Russell Wilson does something. Granted, he's always had a solid offensive team to work around in Seattle. But I think Denver's got some pieces there. So we'll see. It all depends on how they approach the game. I mean, if the defense is elite, time management's going to matter. Maybe not so many deep balls. Seattle's defense ended up falling off. Yeah. So it was kind of like playing from behind a lot. So the numbers look good, but it all depends. So I'm excited though, because I mean, that's a team that was 7-10 last year. And I think Russell Wilson definitely makes them almost a 500 team, if not better, assuming guys stay healthy.
Yeah, when you hear a 500-ish team, you're like, what? No way. But you got to think they are playing 6 games against tough competition in their own division.
Yeah.
And not all of them are winnable. They'd be lucky if they split half of them, I'd say. The other half,
absolutely.
But like, it just depends on the other matchups in their schedule, which I don't have at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know the exact schedule. I just know that it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough, and I feel like they're going to take some from these divisional rivals. So, but I mean, just looking at the offense right now, and of course, I think the big one everybody has their eyes on is Javonte Williams, a little bit younger back.
Their first game against the Seahawks.
Don't you like how they did that? It's like
I
that's
like
not
how
even.
they made the schedule like closer to the season after all the transactions got made.
Oh, of course,
Because
and it
who
just so
else
happens
is
to be a
playing their
Monday night
old
game.
team right away? Someone else is playing their old team immediately as well.
Oh, yeah. Who was that said that they were gonna? Oh, Carolina and Cleveland. Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield.
Yes.
That's gonna be a good game. I think. I hope.
Hmm.
Especially what Baker said on social media. So
So they play the Seahawks, the Texans, the 49ers, the Colts. This is all non-divisional. The Jets, the Jaguars, the Titans, so all AFC South teams. They play the Panthers, the Ravens, the Cardinals, the Rams, and that's it. So, yeah, I could see around 500, maybe even a little bit better. They are playing a lot of teams that give them the automatic win in my book, but they're
oh, for
also
sure.
playing some tough teams like the 49ers could give them trouble. The Colts are pretty decent. The Rams and Cardinals, those are losable games. So I could see them being around 500-ish.
Absolutely.
It just depends how they play.
With that being said, I think we should give our predictions for NFL standings, divisional, and we can do. Let's give our divisions. Let's give our divisions. We'll start with the AFC, and then we'll go to the NFC last, and we'll start from the East, North, South, West. And I'm going to let you go first for your divisional winners plus wild card. Got to
Okay.
remember wild card. So
With 3 teams.
with 3 teams, exactly.
Okay. AFC. I am going to go AFC East. Oh, man. I think this is a given. This is going to be the Buffalo Bills. The Dolphins, with the coaching change, we don't really know. The Patriots still seem like a middle of the pack team. The Jets, they seem iffy. I'm going with the Bills out the East. AFC North. Man, do I do this move? I am going to go. I'm going to say the Bengals aren't a fluke and they're going to win the division. I saw an interview from Joe Burrow the other day. He's making me believe that they are going to be as dominant as they were late in the season. I don't know about the Ravens. Like on paper, I feel like they should win the division. But like we saw last year, I guess Lamar was out for a little bit, but we saw last year where they lost some games. They were close, but they lost a lot of games. The Steelers, iffy at quarterback. They weren't good at quarterback last year with Ben, but it's still a big position. And then the Browns, Deshaun Watson's out for 11 games. Who's their quarterback going to be? Are they going to play well? So I'm going to go Bengals out the north. The South, I'm going to go with the Colts. Jaguars are still trying to be good with Trevor Lawrence. This is his second year out there. The Texans are terrible. The Titans, I think they have their chance. Who knows how Derrick Henry is going to come back this season. And Tannehill, who knows how well he will play. And then AFC West, I still think it's the Chiefs' division to lose. They lost Tyreek Hill, but I don't think that matters. They have a great system. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and they've shown that they're just still a very good team. And then the wild card picks, I am going to go with the Ravens. I will say the Broncos sneak in, and Ravens, Broncos, and I'll go Raiders.
Okay.
I was close between the Raiders or the Chargers, and I'll go Raiders.
Okay, so 3 out of the AFC West are making the playoffs.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to stick with you on the AFC East. I still think it's going to be no contest. I think Buffalo, given their high-powered offense, they put up the most points in the AFC last year. They gave up the least amount of points. Their net point total was the highest. It's just another year under Josh Allen's belt. He's the truth. So I'm going to stick with the Buffalo Bills. Granted, New England, Mac Jones, maybe, maybe not. And we don't know how Miami's truly going to be. Maybe Tua and Tyreek end up blowing up like everybody that they face. Who knows? I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, so I'm going to stick with Buffalo. AFC North is one of the toughest ones because, yeah, Cleveland, okay. I don't really see them winning without Deshaun Watson. Pittsburgh, okay. They did lose Big Ben, but they weren't bad for being a team that was 9-7 with like a horrible quarterback. Cincinnati obviously went to the Super Bowl. And then you have Baltimore where you're like, well, if Lamar Jackson turns it around and kicks it up a notch, now all of a sudden we're talking about Baltimore being another scary team. I'm going to predict Cincinnati as taking the AFC North division, and that's tough. I'm like stumbling over my words because I really want to go Baltimore, but I'm going to go Cincinnati.
You're in
And
the
the AFC,
same debate that I had.
it's like, Baltimore's good. Like Baltimore for the previous 2 years were one of the best, right? And the division is getting worse. Like those teams should sweep Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Well, it all depends because when Deshaun Watson comes back after week 11, then it's okay. But AFC South, that's tough too. Tennessee had a home field advantage. Derrick Henry did get hurt though. We don't know the type of year he's going to have. How much can they rely on him? It's just I don't trust Houston. I think Houston's going to actually be the worst team in the division this year. Jacksonville, maybe they increase by another 2 or 3 wins. They're like a 5 to 6 win team. Then it's a toss up between Tennessee and Indianapolis. And I think with Jonathan Taylor and they establish that run game and they know what they have, that they can be a very dangerous team. And I know we took them last year and Tennessee just ended up being this crazy good team. But I'm going to stick with Indy. They actually, as far as offense and defense, they lost some key games, but I mean, they put up the most points in their division. They barely gave up more points than Tennessee. They have Jonathan Taylor, who finally took off in year 2. I expect him to just destroy it. Defense isn't bad. I like Indianapolis. It's tough. I'm going to go with the Colts. AFC West. You can't bet against Pat Mahomes. I don't care if they got rid of Tyreek Hill. I'm just expecting Travis Kelce to catch 100 balls this year. So I'm going to go with Kansas City and then my wild card teams. This one is very tough. Baltimore's got to be my wild card number 1. Number 2 is going to be... I'm going to go with the Raiders. They won 10 games last year. They added Devontae Adams, another threat. This third one's tough. This third one is very tough. I'm going to go with, because their defense was so good last year, I'm going to go with Denver as well. And part of the reason is, if you look at their offense, it was so bad. It was, let's say, slightly below average. It wasn't the worst. But that defense they gave up 322 points, which was like the 3rd lowest in the AFC. All they have to do is mimic that, and you're getting more production with a way better quarterback in Russell Wilson, a veteran quarterback with solid weapons. So I'm going to say Denver is going to take that other wild card spot. And my thing is the Chargers are going to miss out by like a game. They're not going to miss out by much.
That's what I was thinking. Like, they have a good team, but compared to the other 3 in their division, it's tough for them to get the record there. Compared to being in let's say they're in the AFC South and you swapped them with Tennessee. Like, they might win that division.
Oh, absolutely.
But having 6 games against 3 very good opponents, and then the rest of their schedule, if it's like the Broncos where they play the AFC South and then a bunch of good NFC teams, yeah, they're gonna lose some games by not a lot of points. It's gonna be winnable games, but I still don't feel like they're at the area where they will pull through with them.
Yeah,
Next year, though, I'd be on the lookout.
Oh, next year for sure. Yeah, next year for sure. I think it's and of course, another year of offseason and transactions can make a huge difference. Kind of like what we're seeing with the Broncos, right? So, but that's going to get us to the NFC. And I'll lead this one. I'll start with the NFC. And NFC's tough. The NFC East is getting tougher because Philly is a real threat, right? Like, I look at Philly as like, hey, if Jalen Hurts ends up stepping up and winning more games, he's going to be, that whole team is not bad. But I'm going to go Dallas simply because Dak Prescott, Zeke is, I don't even know how many more years Zeke truly has, but they have a good 1-2 punch with Tony Pollard. They got solid receivers. The defense was not horrible last year. They barely lost a game in the playoffs that realistically came down to one final play that it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened. They should have been able to get down, and I don't remember what it was. They tried to run a quick play instead of spiking, and it was horrible. And so
Yeah.
Dallas is going to run it back because regular season Dallas is good. Playoff Dallas sucks. I will not take them in the playoffs ever. NFC North, I'm going to stick with Green Bay. They did lose Devontae Adams, but historically, they have a very good system, and always somebody will end up stepping up into that role, like Jordy Nelson, like Greg Jennings, like Randall Cobb, like Donald Driver, like Devontae Adams. Somebody stepping into that role. It's a matter of who. And Green Bay's defense was stellar. Stellar this past season, and they're only getting better. Granted, they did lose Zadarius Smith to Minnesota, so that'd be a fun little matchup. But I'm going to go Green Bay, with Minnesota actually being at least one game over 500 this year. The rest of the division, mediocre. They have 4 easy wins against Chicago and Detroit, and they're going to take at least one from Minnesota. So that's 5 wins right there. The rest of the schedule, yeah, they have some tough matchups, but not all of it's tough. NFC South, I feel like it's a gimme. Gimme Tampa Bay. I don't even have to explain why. NFC West, I will say the NFC West is the toughest because those top 3 teams are sick. Like sick. Like I want to watch every one of those games. San Francisco, not as much, but I'm going to go Los Angeles Rams taking the division simply because Matt Stafford is coming off a huge Super Bowl win, and I know there's Super Bowl hangover, and this is why I was thinking Ravens over Bengals. But I think that the Rams have been there. They already performed in the Super Bowl a few years ago, got demolished. Offense was horrible. Stafford's a veteran. They still have the assets. They add Allen Robinson. Aaron Donald's destroying people with 2 helmets at a time. And I'm going to go with Los Angeles, which got to lead to my wildcard picks. And my wildcard picks are going to be tough. I think Philadelphia is sneaking in as a wildcard team. I think they're going to sneak in again as a wildcard team. Now, the other 2 is tough. It's very tough. We don't know the type of year Carolina is going to have. We don't know the type of year Atlanta is going to have. New Orleans won 9 games. I feel like NFC South is going to produce one of the wild cards, but it's hard to bet on it because of the NFC West. I don't think the NFC North is going to have it. I think Minnesota is going to barely miss. But I'm going to go Arizona and San Francisco. Essentially the same playoff makeup what we had last year.
Okay. So, just like always, you might as well record our predictions together because even though we don't talk, we have a lot of similarities. But with a lot of these, it's easy to make the predictions for these teams. So I did have one difference though. The NFC East, I feel like the Eagles are going to take the step up and win the division. It's not going to be pretty. They aren't going to win it by a lot. They aren't going to have a great record. I feel like they will scrap out their division They've made a couple trades recently to help them out. They got Gardner Johnson from the Saints to help out their defense. I feel like they are just going to take the step in the right direction compared to the Cowboys. I don't know. I don't like the Cowboys. I don't think they're good. You see in the playoffs, so rooting for them in the regular season, I just don't see it. The NFC North, easy for the Packers, and NFC South, I think it's still very easy for the Bucks. West, it's a little, you think about it for about 2 seconds, and then you realize the Rams won the Super Bowl. They're really good still, and the other teams in the division have some pieces missing. Last year was a whole different conversation. Last year we're like, I don't know who's going to win the division. But after seeing the Rams keep all their players, win the Super Bowl, have that dominant team, especially Cooper Kupp having a 6th season, the Rams are the team. And then the wild card, I had Cardinals, Cowboys, and 49ers. So pretty much the same teams, except the NFC East and wild card switching with the Cowboys and Eagles. The Cardinals and 49ers are good, and there's a lot of bad teams in the NFC to make it an easy prediction there.
Absolutely. So it's practically the same. And, I was torn with Philly and Dallas like I was with the Bengals and the Ravens, but I just feel like regular season Dallas with their team is very good. And I think it's going to continue, but I think Philadelphia, this is going to be the year where you're like, oh, Jalen Hurts is actually serious. He's a serious threat along with their other weapons. So it'll be a fun, it's the NFC East is slowly becoming more tolerable after like
Yes.
4 or 5 long years.
Yeah, just need the Giants to step up a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Commanders, they're decent, but they still are like missing a quarterback and
the most important position.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's our predictions. We're going to put our predictions out on Twitter.
Do we want to do Super Bowl?
Super Bowl matchup and then Super Bowl winners?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
You go first on the matchup, and then we'll determine winners.
So I think due to the overtime rule change, the Bills are going to come out of the AFC, and out of the NFC, I am going to take. Man, this is tough. AFC or NFC. Man, there's 3 teams to choose from that like stick out.
Green Bay, Tampa, and the Rams.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm torn.
Like I'll just go Bucks. We'll just say the Buccaneers. And I'll say the Bills win it.
All right. I am definitely going with the Bills this year. I think the Bills, especially after what happened last year in the playoffs in that crazy shootout, Bills in the AFC. Question becomes who in the NFC, and that's where I'm stumped. It's hard to bet against Tampa and Tom Brady. Likewise, it's hard to bet against the Rams. And it's hard to bet against Green Bay. And I'm trying to go at this very unbiased, being a huge Green Bay fan. But Green Bay realistically competes with any team in the NFL any given day. They do drop the ball in the playoffs quite a bit, and that's where it's kind of tough. But to me, they are another team where they were just a few plays away from making the right decisions and being another Super Bowl contender, just like they should have been a few years ago when they lost to the Bucs in the playoffs. At this point, though, I'm giving them one more shot. This is the last time I'm predicting Green Bay in another Super Bowl. And the winner is still tough because how do you bet against the Bills, who you're already saying they're better than the Chiefs, right? But I think that Green Bay will be Aaron Rodgers. This is his year. Not MVP Rod. We don't need an MVP Rod. We need a guy who's going to get to the playoffs and who's going to manage the game better. He's going to manage the game better. And maybe it's going to hurt us receiver-wise, but I think Green Bay wins the Super Bowl this year. I don't even think I picked them last year. I'm pretty sure I had like the Bucks.
I think every season you've picked them to make it, but it depends on who in the AFC you've like went against them.
Yeah. And it's really hard because like I feel like deep down part of me is saying the Bills to win the Super Bowl. But I just feel like if they get to that dance, if we get Aaron Rodgers for all 4 quarters like we do for most fourth quarters, because for some reason he just is unstoppable in fourth quarters, then yeah, I think Green Bay is gonna win if they get to that point. It's just a matter of that hurdle of Tampa. I think Tampa's gonna be their biggest hurdle, and I guess you could throw the Rams on there as well. So
okay, so the Bills do not disappoint us.
I don't think they will. I mean, it's gonna be hard. Somebody's gotta get hurt. That's the only way that they lose. Like, they're so talented. Their defense is so good. Their offense is so like everywhere.
Like if they didn't lose in the overtime, they probably would have beat the Bengals and made it to the Super Bowl.
I think
the Chiefs
so.
choked away that game as we saw it in person. Well, not in person. We saw it in the game.
We had beat-ups? We had beat-ups for that. Oh my gosh.
Where they went for the touchdown at halftime instead of taking the field goal.
And they ended up going to overtime. Quarter. Yes. I remember that. I was extremely hungover that day. That was a rough day. That was a fun day because of that game.
Yeah, if they would have just kicked the field goal at halftime, after they were up too, which is why they went for the touchdown to kind of put the dagger in them. But instead, they didn't want to take the points. They ended up going to overtime, and then they ended up losing in overtime.
Yeah. Yep. They should have just taken the points. But yeah, so let's put this out on Twitter. We'll put it out by the weekend. We have some time. We have about a week before kickoff on Thursday. It's Thursday night that we're recording. September 1st. Happy September. So, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that follow button. SR Only Pod. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well. Follow our personals. I'm iGoose with 4 O's, and then we have Healy.
My @ is the Healy6. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, that'll do it for this podcast.
See you guys next week.